Imagine the most out-of-pocket work of fiction you've ever read. Imagine if the plot writers were smoking pot and you'd get the showdown that was Crow versus Reinhardt on paternity court. Crow had dragged Reinhardt to paternity court because she believed her late son was the father of her child Thomas. She was all about proving the kid's paternity, while Reinhardt was not here for what she believed was Crow having a dramatic moment while aiming for a cash grab. This was just the beginning.
This is a case of Crow versus Reinhardt.
Thank you, Jerome. Good day, everyone. Miss Crow, you have summoned the defendant to court to prove that her deceased son, J.C. Turner, fathered your 2-year-old son, Thomas. You want Thomas to know who his father is, and you say that Ms. Reinhardt has done...
The plot thickens as Ms. Crow accuses Reinhardt of constantly sabotaging her efforts to link her child to his father, and Reinhardt claps back without mincing words while stating that Crow used her son for money while he was alive. And this assertion that her dead son was Ms. Crow's baby father was definitely another one of her attempts at gold digging in order to snatch up her son's death benefits. Reinhardt also stated that her son was in no way Ms. Crow's baby father. Ms. Crow just wanted her child to know his father.
And now it's trying to claim him as her son's father only to get death benefits. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Crow, are you doing this just for the money?
It is more than just the money. I would like help with my son, yes, of course, but my son cannot grow.
Ms. Crow's very touching narration on how she keeps trying to keep her baby's memories of his dad alive were definitely worth reaching for the tissues. For her, money wasn't the catalyst for seeking for the truth behind her son's paternal links, but a need to solidify his identity for when he grows up. Ms. Reinhardt gets the opportunity to say her piece, and her assertions are a little short of appalling. She also alludes to his birth timing being inconsistent with expected results.
And to this point, he doesn't have any real knowledge of his father. You have not talked to him about his father, or have you?
I have.
You have?
Actually, when my son was first born and he was, just a few months old, I would talk on the phone every day with Jay, and I would put him on speakerphone so his son could hear his voice.
Okay.
Reinhardt believed she and her son had a very tight relationship, one in which he told her everything and all motherly instincts she had built in her gut from being a mother. And grandmother was telling her Thomas wasn't her grandchild. Crow goes on to reveal to the court how she met Jay and the super movie Like Romance they had, which allegedly led to baby Thomas's arrival.
Looking at that picture,
I understand.
my son and I had a very tight relationship.
Yes.
And Jay would tell me everything when nobody else was around. I knew my son inside and out. And I just don't, as a mother, as a grandmother, having 4 babies of my own, my gut tells me.
Just when we think things couldn't possibly get even more heart-wrenching, Jay's struggles while he was alive is revealed to the court. He was schizophrenic with the mental capacity of a 16-year-old, and this caused his mother to doubt his state of mind in accepting a child as his. However, it doesn't take long for her to go back to giving more facepalm-worthy reasons as to why she thinks Crow's baby could not possibly be her grandchild. It was because, unlike her other grandkids, Thomas didn't favor her as a baby.
He'd have believed you if you told him the sky was purple.
Well, that's
He
your
only
own
had the
opinion.
He
That's
only
your own
had the
opinion.
mental capacity of a 16-year-old.
And this okay, and you
He
know
had-
what? He had feelings.
He was schizophrenic.
He had feelings.
He was schizophrenic and he had stress seizures.
And I took care of
And
him.
my son was
I didn't
very
leave him
close
because
to
of that.
his mom. So
And
she could have told him that was...
Not to be outdone, Crow rebuts her claims by asserting that she has strong genes and that her child definitely resembled his dad in more ways than one. Reinhardt and Crow get into another argument about Thomas's pregnancy. Reinhardt also thinks that since Thomas doesn't have a peculiar characteristic which her son had from birth, it meant Thomas was definitely not her grandchild. It was the case of the pigeon toes.
I have strong genes.
So, Ms. Crow, you say your genes are strong as well. Do you see a resemblance to his dad?
My son, he has a silly sense of humor like Jay. He likes to dance like Jay. And, just right there, you can see it. Like his hair, that is Jay.
Crow talks about the point when the baby was born. JC had been living with her at the time and was clearly not in the best state of mind, and she had had enough. She decided to send him away because she couldn't contact his mom. His mom seemed to think Crow didn't even attempt to reach her. Crow and JC had fallen out, but he had come back later to make memories with his son, and then everyone moved on according to Crow.
Take Take me to the point in which the baby was born. Was JC participating in the birth?
Okay, so me and JC, at the time we were living together, it was March 2015. I have decided to no longer go any further.
The arguments go on as each side attempts to speak for themselves and assert their position, and soon enough, both parties were almost yelling out their discrepancies with each other. At the end of the day, it was time to get to the bottom of the truth, and the judge revealed some shocking yet satisfying results. It was clear JC's mom wasn't being honest about why she thought the baby wasn't her son's.
The percentage of relatedness between Ms. Reinhardt and Thomas Crow is 99.6% you are related. That is your grandchild. Ms. Reinhardt, you have never laid eyes on your grandchild.
This very annoying case will have you hissing at every turn. The case of Bido versus Bolton is introduced as Ms. Bido expresses frustration over Mr. Bolton's request for a DNA test on her 7-month-old daughter, Ileana. She explains that this demand has disrupted their once happy home. Mr. Bolton, however, argues he has valid reasons to doubt Ileana's paternity, citing past experiences where he was deceived about being a child's father. Despite having bonded with Ileana, he feels compelled to confirm her biological connection to him, having been hurt by similar situations in the past.
Ms. Bido, you say you were furious when the defendant asked you for a DNA test on your 7-month-old daughter, Ileana. Now you claim that request has broken up your happy home. Mr. Bolton, you state you have reason to believe Ms. Bido's child may not be your biological daughter.
Mr. Bolton recalls the events at Ileana's birth, including a moment when the doctor handed him the baby and commented on her unusually light skin tone, which immediately raised doubts in his mind. According to Mr. Bolton, the doctor's remark was the first instance that led him to question Ileana's paternity. He shares that even friends, family, and strangers often comment on Ileana's light complexion, which has intensified his uncertainty. Meanwhile, Ms. Bido defends her heritage, explaining that their mixed backgrounds include lighter-skinned family members, and feels Mr. Bolton is letting outsiders influence him.
I'm looking at him like, what do you mean this baby's white?
Jerome, have you ever heard of such?
But
That's a first for me.
this is the reason. This is the reason.
Let me see your evidence. That's a picture of...
This is a picture of Ileana when she was first born. And when the doctor made that comment, this is the reason why we're here right there.
Okay, Your Honor, let me just say this.
The suspicions do not stop there, as Mr. Bolton recalls an incident involving his boss, who, upon seeing the baby, questioned whether Ileana was really his. These repeated comments from the doctor, family, friends, and even casual encounters at the grocery store have deeply impacted Mr. Bolton, reinforcing his need for a paternity test. While Ms. Bido maintains that no one expresses these doubts when she's around, Mr. Bolton finds the accumulation of external skepticism difficult to ignore, especially given his personal history with paternity issues.
That's not what they said, Your Honor. What they were saying, maybe on his side, but my side, they did make some comments, but of course I defended. That's my daughter, you know?
Yep.
So I see him all the time in her. I see a little bit of my features, but mostly I see him.
Your Honor, maybe 2 weeks when Ileana came home.
Mr. Bolton explains that similar situations in past relationships left him emotionally scarred. He describes instances where he was led to believe he was the father of a child, only to later learn he was not. These experiences have left him wary, increasing his insistence on a DNA test for Ileana. The court learns that this is his 4th time facing questions about paternity, making him feel justified in wanting clarity and closure. He explains that these doubts are not based on mistrust of Ms. Bido alone, but are also a result of his difficult past.
But you weren't.
I wasn't.
And now you're here again. So, Ms. Bido, you tell me you're a faithful, loyal woman, and I have no reason at this point not to believe you. He hasn't presented any testimony that would say otherwise. However, I have to ask you, during the last couple years, how old is Ileana? She's 7 months. Last year and a half or so, have you slept with anybody else?
We actually broke up last year around August.
Judge Lake asks Ms. Bido if she has been faithful to Mr. Bolton throughout their relationship, particularly in the last year and a half. Ms. Bido admits that they briefly broke up the previous August due to infidelity on Mr. Bolton's part. Mr. Bolton admits he had cheated, justifying it by explaining he felt pressured due to constant accusations from Ms. Bido. Ms. Bido reveals she found text messages and photos from other women, which she confronted him about, but he initially denied cheating. Following this, she chose to end the relationship, at which point she admits she briefly saw someone else.
I was hurt. It had been a month later. I just went out, hanging out, and one thing led to another. I saw a guy I liked, but we actually slept together twice. The first time was unprotected, the second time was protected, and after that, as a matter of fact, I spoke to him after that, but we never had any type of relationship or anything.
She wasn't answering my phone calls for a while. After,
Why should I?
I cheated on her, okay? So now we're working on something, trying to get back together.
In response to Mr. Bolton's doubts, Ms. Bido clarifies that her involvement with another man happened only after she and Mr. Bolton separated. She insists that, at the time of Ileana's conception, she was committed exclusively to Mr. Bolton. The couple's trust issues and previous relationship troubles play a significant role in their conflict, and Judge Lake weighs these factors as the case progresses, preparing to reveal the results of the paternity test.
In the case of Bido v. Bolton, when it comes to the paternity of Ileana Bolton, and as to whether Mr. Bolton is her biological father, it has been determined by this court. Mr. Bolton, you are her father.
There was the age-long dilemma of being stuck between the rock and the hard place. Mr. Hughes was stuck between his mom and his former girlfriend. Apart from paternity concerns, she was suing for defamation, asking for quite the sum for damages as a result of certain offensive posts made on social media.
Who are in a heated dispute in court today. Ms. McBirth, you petitioned the court for a DNA test to prove your son, Kakitho Hughes, is not the father of Ms. Jackson's 2-year-old son, Elijah Jackson. Furthermore,
Ms. Jackson believed Mr. Hughes' mom was actively sowing dangerous seeds in her son's hearts concerning who is the father of the child. Ms. McBirth only has some shocking alliteration of adjectives to describe Ms. Jackson in the meanest way possible. The reason why she really believed her son wasn't the father. She had evidence to prove her claims.
because you claim she posted comments on social media claiming you and your family are deadbeats. Now, Ms. Jackson, you say Ms. McBirth has been poisoning her son by convincing him he's not the biological father of your child. You claim the timing does add up in today's paternity test.
Ms. McBirth's comments on Ms. Jackson's son's appearance, which she had hinged the basis of her evidence, got quite nasty with horrible racial undertones. By all indications, this was only the beginning with Ms. McBirth.
So, Ms. McBirth, why do you believe your son's not the father?
This woman is trouble. She is trouble with a capital T. She, as a matter of fact, I call her the 3 T's. Trash, trouble, and trifling. That's what she is. The little boy looks nothing like my son.
Ms. Jackson had been dating Ms. McBirth's son for quite a while and maintained her faithfulness to the relationship. However, there was another family member who had even more vitriol for Ms. Jackson, and that was Mr. Hughes' sister. She hated Ms. Jackson's guts and had only vile things to say. Was there any truth to what the mother and daughter had to say about Ms. Jackson?
Of my family at all. Can I show it? Can I?
Absolutely, ma'am. What did you bring? Piece of evidence, Jerome, may I see that, please? This is a photo of your son and the child in question, and you say the child looks nothing like your son.
That baby white as snow. There's no way that could be my grandchild or my son's baby.
The child's skin color seemed to be the recurring reason for doubt, or in Ms. McBirth's case, absolute certainty the child couldn't possibly be hers. The sister drops a bomb in court, and the mother abandons all decorum and breaks out into the most nasty song to taunt Ms. Jackson.
Nobody in my family looked like that.
And just by looking at this child, you've determined and said to yourself, I do not believe that's my grandchild.
That can't happen. There's no way. There's no way.
So, Ms. Jackson, obviously you have a different opinion. So why do you think she's in so much doubt?
It was time to get Mr. Hughes' side of the story, and it turned out that his dad was a complete white man, and that is why he had believed in the possibility that the child was his. His sister says the nastiest thing in response to his claims, and even the judge is visibly taken aback.
Have you been in a relationship with Mr. Hughes?
For maybe about 15, 18 months.
Okay, so a little over a year. Were you in a committed relationship?
I thought we was.
You did, okay. And was he the only person you were intimate with during that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Now she knows she lying.
More bickering and even more nasty words are aimed at Ms. Jackson's character. It was time to address the defamation claims amidst all of the chaos, and the results are quite underwhelming. It was time to get answers on the most important question in court that day.
In
Got
10
two
years.
babies
He's been
by
arrested for
another
2
woman,
years,
and
for 10
those
years.
are my grandchildren.
For 10 years. So all she basically was for him was a snack cake on the side of his meal. There was nothing more.
Thank you. A side chick.
And it's all she has done is she's been trying to put the baby on us.
The paternity test results were clearly more than the very obnoxious mother and daughter bargained for, which caused a very loud rejection of the court's professionally obtained results. The mother is so upset, she starts to trash up the courtroom as she throws a really huge tantrum because of the DNA test results. This mother had lost her shit in court.
Real children to the doctor, and it was a newborn, and I walked past them, and I kind of glanced over there, and I seen this little white baby. I knew it wasn't mine, and I ain't had nothing else to say or do about it since then. She need to get that out of her head. That child is not my son's baby, period.
Well, let me first.
In this case, a mother and daughter duo are in court on behalf of their dead son and brother to deny the paternity of a 2-year baby he allegedly fathered before he passed.
Of course, state the obvious, which I'm hoping you know as well, being African American. You know our children come in all colors, shade.
Elijah
She told me
is very
he wasn't.
white.
She told me she didn't know who the father was. She's changed her story up different times about who's the father. At first, when I first met the girl, she said, okay.
Having to find out in the most non-reassuring way that her son had fathered a kid may have given the mother a completely bad impression of the whole situation. She had lost her son to violence, and their lives had changed forever.
I said, okay, this is my brother's baby. She said, yes. I said, do you know or do you think? She said, I think. So when we asked while she was pregnant, we asked her for a DNA test.
And what did she say?
She was like, oh, okay. She was all for it. At that time frame, she was all for it, the DNA test. All of a sudden.
However, Ms. Manning was hurt that they didn't come to her with their doubts. Ms. Manning goes down memory lane on the way she communicated her pregnancy to the other 2 women and their nonchalant reaction to the news. Nevertheless, the mother was active in the baby's life, but things get even messier when the deceased man's girlfriend is brought to testify.
That's because that's my last name.
And so hold on now, if you don't think the child is his, why would she be trying to change the name?
Well, we've been trying to change the name a couple weeks ago. Even we talked about it.
He's two years.
My son ain't said
his
no lie
name's
like
not
that.
even on the
Stop
birth
lying.
certificate.
Stop lying.
Okay.
Whose name is on the birth certificate? Do you know?
Nobody.
The boy's mother discusses her woes dealing with both of her son's baby mothers and her struggles with doubt. She had, however, tried to ensure that the children from both women had come to know of each other and learned to coexist. All she wanted was the truth, as her emotions overwhelmed her.
Hello?
Ma'am.
Yes,
that
you
is
did.
not
Yes,
true.
you did. Yes, you
There's
did.
some hoes in this
That
house.
is not true.
Yes, it is.
Miss McBirth.
Yes, it is.
Miss McBirth.
Yes, it is. It is true because why is your neighbors complaining about the sex that goes on in your
There was
household?
no sex
Yes.
going on.
How
No,
you know
read
you're
the police
drunk?
report. If you
let's
want
get some order.
read the police
Ladies,
report.
ladies.
In a shocking plot twist, the DNA test results performed by the court reveal a devastating news, and the plaintiff was clearly affected by the results. But Ms. Manning's reaction to the results were callous and yet so dramatic as she even wanted to leave the court. She definitely didn't want that baby because it didn't look like her skin color.
Elijah's father?
You know
No,
what?
not in this case.
Like the old saying goes,
No.
mama's baby's papa's maybe.
And whether Mr. Hughes is the father, Mr. Hughes, you are Elijah's father.
The case of Johnson versus Kirby was quite annoying as Mr. Johnson was nothing short of racist and ignorant. Mr. Johnson was there to prove he was not the biological father of Ms. Kirby's 11-month-old son, Kadeen. He claims her accusations are causing trouble in his relationship, and he was sure the results will clear his name. Ms. Kirby was very certain her child was conceived during her relationship with Mr. Johnson. She also reveals that he has health issues. She needed Mr. Johnson to step up and be a father.
Mr. Johnson, you are here to prove you are not the biological father of Miss Kirby's 11-month-old son, Caden. You claim her accusations are causing trouble in your relationship, and you are certain the results will clear your name. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Kirby, you are positive your son was conceived during your sexual relationship with Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson accuses Ms. Kirby of trying to pin the baby on him, saying she only wants help now that she was single. Ms. Kirby responds by pointing out that he recently contacted her. The judge asks Mr. Johnson if he has doubts about being Caden's father, and he says he does. When asked why she's so emotional, Ms. Kirby says it's painful that Mr. Johnson won't acknowledge her son. This case was very distressing, to say the least.
It was just talk. It was nothing like that. We only had sex. That was it. Nothing more. And plus, she's trying to pin this baby on me because she need help now. And then
I don't need your help. My baby's well taken care of. He's been taken care of for almost a year now.
Well, why you threatening me with child support?
Because I know you ain't gonna do nothing.
Ms. Kirby says that Mr. Johnson had once expressed wanting a child with her, but he insists it was casual talk. He claims she wants him involved because she needs help, but Ms. Kirby argues that she's taken care of Caden on her own. The judge turns to Mr. Johnson's background, asking if he grew up with his father. Mr. Johnson, who was abandoned by his father, claims he would never do that to his own child, but maintains Caden isn't his.
Okay, what did she say? Keep it PG, please.
All right. Well, Your Honor, she was just saying that how she'll do when she in the bed with a man. That's what she was talking about.
Oh.
That don't mean I was trying to lay down with you.
Yes, you were. So why did we exchange numbers?
Mr. Johnson continues to assert that Caden doesn't look like him, unlike his child with another partner, which fuels his doubts. The judge asks how they met, and Mr. Johnson explains they worked together and met during a work-related event. He recalls Ms. Kirby initiating a sexual conversation that leads to an exchange of numbers, and shortly after, a physical relationship. Clearly, someone had no clue how genes worked.
Point when you all are actually in the bed together, that's just less than 24 hours. And now you admit you were also having a sexual relationship with another man. So, seems pretty obvious how we got here.
Ms. Kirby denies being the one to start the sex chats and says she was already seeing someone else. Mr. Johnson says she was upfront about seeing other people, noting she was in another sexual relationship while they were seeing each other. The judge points out how fast things progressed between them despite her involvement with another man, and Ms. Kirby confirms she was dating someone else at the time.
Kirby, did you tell this other guy you were with you were pregnant?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
And so why are you threatening Mr. Johnson with child support? And
because I did the calculations, we had sex July 10th, and this the around the time that I could see Caden.
So you looked at the conception window?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson narrates finding out about Ms. Kirby's pregnancy through social media, which led him to ask her if the baby was his. Initially, Ms. Kirby told him no, only to later change her stance. Curious and concerned, Mr. Johnson visited her home to clarify. Ms. Kirby explains that she initially denied his paternity because she didn't want his involvement at the time, feeling unsupported by him. The episode ends with both expressing frustration as the court prepares for the paternity results.
Mr. Johnson, you are the father. Congratulations are in order again. That's your beautiful little boy.
I mean, Your Honor, like I said, I'm the father of this child, and I'm gonna step up.
That is good to know, because Caden deserves it, and he's been waiting for it for 11 months.
Imagine getting rejected by your family because of the color of your skin? Well, this was the very sad addery of Hoyer versus Porter. Porter and Gentry was quite depressing. Mr. Hoyer, who grew up in foster care for 14 years, had been looking for his father. He learned that his alleged father, Mr. James Horn, has died. Mr. Hoyer claims that Mr. Horn's family has rejected him. He is in court today to prove that he is indeed Mr. Horn's son, hoping to finally connect with a family.
Mr. Hoyer, after 14 years of being in foster care, you desperately searched for your father. Sadly, that search ended when you learned that your alleged father, Mr. James Horn, was tragically killed. To make matters worse, you claim his family rejected you, and so you're here today to prove to them that you are indeed his son and finally have a family.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Porter, who is Mr. Horn's sister, insists that Mr. Hoyer is not part of their family. She states that before Mr. Horn died, he clearly said he had no children, and she believes today's DNA test will confirm this. Ms. Gentry, Mr. Hoyer's mother, who is also present, hopes to improve her relationship with him, but honestly admits she is uncertain about who his father might be.
I went to my mom's house just to go say hi, and her new boyfriend was like, "You look like your father," which stopped me right there in my tracks. So I was like, "Wait, you know my father?" He was like, "Yeah, your father is James Horn."
And this was the first person that had looked at you and said, "You look just like him."
Yes, Your Honor, and I actually have a photo here.
Jerome, may I see that, please?
Mr. Hoyer describes his difficult childhood, explaining how it felt like hell growing up without a father. He was taken into foster care at a young age and adopted at 14, missing out on important life lessons. He believes knowing his biological father would have changed his life. He shares that he found out about Mr. Horn being his father from his mother's boyfriend on his 23rd birthday.
But there was others in the household that was like, "You don't look like my brother."
Okay, so Ms. Horn, when this young man walks into your home and says he thinks he's your grandson, what were you thinking?
Well, my son Arthur brought him in.
Mr. Hoyer recalls a moment when his brother, who lives next door to Mr. Horn's brother, asked about James Horn. This led him to meet his alleged uncle, who noted some similarities between their hands. However, while some family members seem to acknowledge these traits, others expressed doubt about Mr. Hoyer's resemblance to Mr. Horn.
So what you're saying is you were open and honest with your son that you had also been intimate with another man before Mr. Horn?
Yes, yes. Me and my sons talked about this.
So when you had your son, was Mr. Horn there? Was he involved with your son?
Yes, Mr. Horn seen my son one time. I left out of the relationship because
Ms. Horn, Mr. Horn's mother, explains that she was told Mr. Horn never had children. She recalls Mr. Hoyer's visit, stating she was unsure about his claims. Ms. Gentry admits her relationship with Mr. Horn was kept secret because her family did not accept biracial relationships. She reflects on how she loved Mr. Horn and felt devastated by his death.
No, I did not. I just walked out and I forgot all about it.
Okay. And so you said there is another gentleman, so where was he and why didn't you reach out to him?
I think he was locked up and I left it alone.
Your Honor, it's sad this young man got to hear what we got to say.
Ms. Porter expresses her disbelief in Mr. Hoyer being her brother's child, claiming she never heard Mr. Horn mention any children. The family was shocked when Ms. Gentry showed up 2 weeks after Mr. Horn's funeral, claiming to have Mr. Horn's child. The family felt grief and confusion and did not accept her at that time.
If he was the child.
You didn't want him then, and you sure now don't want him now.
That's what you think, but we don't want you. We want him, but we don't want you. And we don't want to have nothing to say to you. I hope you get your life together. Because you bringing up a whole lot. You hurting my mother.
Ms. Gentry explains that she was not sure if Mr. Horn was the father when she approached the family, indicating it could be possible. However, she admits she wasn't certain about the paternity. As tensions rise, she reveals the complexity of her feelings about Mr. Horn and how the secret of their relationship was hard for her to bear.
He did all kinds of tricks on bicycle. That's what he liked to do. And when my mother got a call that he had been in an accident, they came to us and they told us that his heart's beating, but his brain's not functioning. The doctor comes and tells you you got to pull the plug on your child. You got to make a decision, knowing.
As the conversation continues, the family dynamics and the impact of secrets in relationships become clearer. There's a struggle between seeking the truth and the emotional turmoil surrounding Mr. Horn's death. The court aims to resolve these uncertainties through DNA testing, bringing the hope of clarity for everyone involved.
Of whether Mr. James Horn is your biological father, the DNA test results have determined that Mr. Horn is not likely your biological father.